we make the orders.
Right.
We go in before anyone else and we see what's going on the ground. And then we tell our higher ups, this is what you have these other units do to succeed. And so that's what we do in our home. We allow our kids to have the ideas of the way things should look, and that accountability lies on us.
Welcome back to Raising Men. Today's guest is somebody who's fought battles most of us could never imagine, both on the battlefield and within himself. Aaron Blaine grew up fatherless, angry, and lost. He barely graduated high school, yet he went on to become a U.S. Army Green Beret, one of the most elite warriors in the world. But it wasn't until after the military that Aaron faced the toughest mission of all, learning how to heal, how to lead, and how to become the father that he never had. He's the founder and CEO of Wild Ops Box, a powerful initiative helping fathers and sons reconnect through shared purpose and adventure. In this episode, we're going to talk about the battles before the battlefield, what real strength looks like, and how a man can transform his pain into purpose. Aaron, welcome to Raising Men, and thank you so much for joining us.
Dude, thanks for having me. You got something really cool going here.
I really appreciate that. Thank you for saying that. It's absolutely an honor to get to know you. Now, you've described yourself as a directionless and angry young man. I like to think that strong emotions like that can either be a toxin or a tool, but you seem to have mastered turning it into a tool. Tell me how you thought about that and how that helped you think about how to turn boys into men.
Yeah, it's a great question. It's absolutely true. Growing up, I think I experienced a lifetime of trauma and disruption and chaos as a young man, starting at the age of 11 when I lost my father. And that sort of was the avalanche that buried me, my brother, my mom, and as painful as that was, I think I had the right people sort of around me. My dad has a really strong family lineage of, great men. And, luckily I had a grandfather that was extremely supportive and, included my brother and I in everything. And, there was this loss and sense of, it was a directionless childhood, in the sense of not having a male figure in the household, and then having a mother that was struggling with a lot of health issues. And and there's just a whole gamut of things that sort of all came to fruition at one time. And so, navigating that felt as if I was navigating it sort of on my own for the most part.
Yeah.
Essentially my brother and I sort of just raised each other. We did our best, but,
Right.
it came with a lot of challenges. I think I was blessed with, a really strong will, from a young age, and wanting to succeed, and, understanding that there is sort of a light at the end of the tunnel, but I needed to do the work first, and, seeking that, and, being on that journey for such a long time. It was just an incremental sort of building blocks to, getting me to where I was. And I'll say that it was really rough around the edges, and extremely challenging. And yeah, so I think, for whatever it's worth, the pain and the suffering and the loss was a catalyst for growth for me. And even if I didn't realize it at the time, that got me where I am today. And people always say, "Oh man, I'm really sorry this happened, and that must have been really hard." And at this point, I really couldn't tell you how else it would have, came through. And
Yeah.
and so I'm really grateful for really how my life has turned out, and how, especially my brother and I have, broken through that threshold of growth, and really came out the other side.
I've spoken to a lot of people that have undergone some serious tragedy, and it's like it's a pachinko machine, and you end up in one of two slots. One of the slots
Mm.
is it ruins you, and the other slot is it turns you great.
Yeah,
And in that latter case, almost always what the person says is it was the most important thing that ever happened to me.
that's correct.
And it's almost like they don't wanna say they're glad it happened because nobody's glad the horrible thing happened, but if it hadn't happened, I wouldn't be who I am today. And I feel like that's an important lesson about everything that can happen in your life. You get to choose whether what it does to you. You get to choose how you react to the stimulus.
Sure.
And it's an active choice to help it propel you forward.
Yeah, it's a consistent active choice over
Yeah,
a very long period of time. And
yeah,
what I'll say is that, I think it's super relevant to this podcast and the content that you're putting out was, I had such a strong foundation from an excellent father.
yeah,
And, some people will say, sorry for your loss, sorry for your loss. And I lost him physically, but the lessons and the foundation that was built for my brother and I think was so strong that my father really never did pass away.
yeah.
He lived with us and still lives in me big time. And that's really helped to propel me forward with the spirit of what he was able to achieve with my brother and I in such a short time.
I was 10 years older than you were when I lost my mom. And I had a similar kind of relationship with my mom. She was an absolutely extraordinary person.
Yeah,
I was blessed to have had her for as long as I did. But there isn't anything I wouldn't give to have her now and to have
sure.
her know my kids and all of that. It's almost like she became superhuman
Yeah,
in her absence, where it's almost and she became a totem that I could aspire to live up to. And if she had survived to this day, she'd be a human. And the lessons that I would have gotten from her, I would have gotten more lessons, but they I don't know that they would have been as powerful.
yeah. No, that's the juxtaposition, right?
Yeah.
When people leave us, if their legacy is much more powerful than their physical body and their physical presence.
Yeah, and what an honor to have left that kind of legacy, right? I mean, isn't that what we all aspire to? Is
Right.
to have those who come after us say the kinds of things about us that we're saying about our parents? It's wonderful for them.
Yeah. Just to kind of seal that in, I have been volunteering at a senior home for about 6 months now, and I've been walking with this gentleman, and he is 97.
Wow.
And him and I would take walks, and I'd listen to his stories, and it was just something that I did once a week, and it brought me a lot of joy in the sense that I had some service to someone, but at the
Yeah.
same time, like imagining being that old and not having anyone around to spend the rest of your life with or
Right.
share your story with. And the day that my daughter was born, which was last week, he passed away on that day.
Wow.
And I was talking to his wife, Billy, and there was just this moment where I realized, like, wow, I'm experiencing life and birth at the same exact time as someone is experiencing this huge loss
Yeah.
and death of someone. And dude, it just hit me so hard. And the takeaway for that, and I was talking to my boss about it. Him and I see eye to eye on all this stuff, which is it's not really that far away. And the time doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Mhm.
And him and I are both hunters, and we're like,
Mm.
in 9 seasons, hunting seasons, we'll be 50 years old, and our kids will be sort of working their way out of the house. That's 9 years away.
It's nothing.
It's nothing. It's a drop, in a bucket of time that
Yeah.
is so small. And so, having the ability to kinda take a step back and see that total juxtaposition of birth and death and then understanding that really at the end of life, I think that it's exactly what I want is for people to say, "Hey, you know, I've fond memories of this man or, the way he showed up in the world, and that's what really matters. The money doesn't matter, you know, the the awards on the wall, they all go away, and, your spirit is what is left in people's hearts and minds after you leave."
Yeah. Yeah, I think that what a beautiful sentiment, and I love that story about about your volunteer work at the senior home. I love it.
Yeah, it's been fun. It
Yeah.
it really is, and
Well,
it's,
yeah. What? Uh, but man, to sign up for that, that's going to happen over and over again.
yeah.
You're going to get to know these people. You're going to get close to these people, and they're going to leave.
And it's a gift.
Yeah.
It's a gift to spend those last moments with someone that essentially had most of them have no one. And,
Mm.
and what it does for me, it's not that I want people to know that I go do that. It's that I understand very clearly that service above self in some way is what brightens my spirit and makes me a better person. And it makes me have to be fully present. If I was in a hurry or a rush, they walk at a half a mile per hour, and it really kind of forces me to slow down and to just be really grateful. I think gratitude is like the antidote to depression or
No
anxiety or,
question.
you know, and if you're spending time with someone that is at the end of their time, it's
Yeah.
um it's really palpable.
Yeah. Yeah. I know what you mean. It's it's like going to the gym, and you almost don't aspire to go to the gym when you're not at the gym, really.
Right?
But when you leave the gym after having worked out, you feel amazing.
Yeah.
And so intellectually, I can imagine like not wanting to go through that heartbreak, but that's not the way you experience it in the moment. And when you leave it,
No.
it's you get this value that you couldn't have imagined. There's no other way to get the value.
It's intrinsic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can't imagine it before you're there.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's a really powerful statement.
Yeah, it's called, Befrienders, and,
Yeah.
luckily that I have an amazing, host of teammates that I work with, and the owner of the facility that I'm a director at, she really encourages the nonprofit work and the volunteer work, and she actually pays us to go
No
and
kidding. That's amazing.
volunteer.
What a wow. That's a
Yeah. I think and for her to see the value that it comes back full circle, that and she's willing to, put some money up against it
yeah,
is, it's a really cool opportunity. It makes me really excited to be a part of the team that I'm, with here at the hot springs, at the resort. 'Cause it's full functional wellness, and
yeah,
that doesn't just mean, the gym or the sauna. That's your spiritual health as well. And, really proud to be able to work with people that fully understand that or at least embody it.
yeah. I wanna talk for a moment about, your experience in the military. What, did the process of becoming and being a Green Beret teach you about leadership, about masculinity, and about discipline?
Yeah, that's a big question, and, lots of answers to that for sure. I started out, um, just sort of wandering around aimlessly, as we spoke about earlier, not having a whole lot of direction as a young man and not knowing where to put my energy. And, I read this book called Masters of Chaos when I
Yeah,
was really young, and it was about, a special forces team that went in the invasion of Iraq. And, there was just so much content in that book that drew me towards, the coveted Green Beret. And a lot of what drew me into that realm was the autonomy that they had and the ability for them to be completely self-sufficient and you know the sense of freedom that I believed would be possible to go join an elite unit like that. And there was something probably subconscious that I didn't completely understand, that I knew I wanted to test myself and I wanted to be around the best people in the world.
Yeah.
I wanted to be mentored and led by these giants of men that had gone before me. And so, that book really sort of like laid the groundwork for me to become disciplined, especially in my physical body.
Mhm.
And that was a really good outlet for my anger that we talked about earlier, was is working out. It always has been, and I think it always will be. Being able to have that faucet for myself to just sort of unload everything from the day or the week or whatever's going on with me. I really truly believe that fitness and physical health is the top shelf, and then everything flows down from there. And my father did such an excellent job of modeling that. When we were kids, me and my brother, he used to drop us off at the daycare gym, or the gym daycare,
Yeah.
and we would sit at the gate and watch him work out.
Yeah.
And he was an absolute stud. I mean, he would do these like bicep workouts before his softball games just to make himself look a little bit stronger.
Right. Right.
And
Be a
he was
little bit
just,
more intimidating.
yeah, and dude, he would just wallop balls out of the park. Like, my brother and I would go stand behind the fence,
Yeah.
and he would hit cars all the time, and we would laugh so hard with he'd hit home runs. And he was just such a larger than life character, and fitness and health and wellness was definitely was a priority for him.
Yeah. You talk about this touchstone of anger keeps coming back. And I found that when my boy was 3 months old, nobody in my life could ever have made me angrier than this
Yeah,
little sack of emotion. And I struggled with this because I am not by nature an angry person.
sure.
I'm very laid back. I'm very take things as they come, and I don't react that way. I actually often felt like that was a detriment to me because I did not have the kind of experience having to control my anger the way that somebody who got angry a lot when they were younger would have. And so I'm interested in knowing you and I are opposites in this way, and I'm really interested to know, what was that experience for you when your son was just young? I mean,
Mhm.
did you experience that too? How did you control your anger? How did you manage that?
That's a great question, and I think 3 is the right age to focus on here. And when he was born, it was just this
Yes.
amazing thing. This little boy came into my life, and it was toys and smiles and laughs. And then around 3 is when he really started to challenge my wife and I
Yeah.
in a big way.
Yeah.
And it was, luckily, so to kind of back up a little bit, I had been introduced into a men's group in Bozeman. And sort of the impetus of the group was to be in touch with your emotions and your physical body. And that was something I was completely unaware of at the time. And this is at post military. And I can remember sitting in a circle with a bunch of guys. And the very first night that I showed up, I had no idea what I was getting into. I just kind of trusted the guy who was leading the group. I had
Yeah.
actually heard him on Joe Rogan, and he said he lived in Bozeman. So I was like, hey, I'm going to reach out to this guy and see what this men's group's all about.
Wow.
And I hit him up on Facebook Messenger, and he got back to me and said, yeah, let's have coffee tomorrow morning. So anyway, we hit it off. I could see clearly that him and I were on the same trajectory. My wife was pregnant. His wife was pregnant. We were
Wow.
both having our first child. And, I came and sat in on this group. And when I came into the room, everyone was quiet and these guys were meditating. And, I'm used to walking into a team room with a bunch of ball busting guys
I can
and
imagine.
loud, beer drinking, snuff in your lip and, spitting in a bottle. It's sort of like
Sure.
that's my environment. That's what I'm used to. To see a bunch of guys just sitting calmly meditating was fucking terrifying.
Must have blown your mind.
Blow my mind.
Absolutely.
And so, the first prompt to the group was, to share your emotion and your physical state. And it got to me, and I didn't know what to say.
Yeah.
And the guy said, "Hey, can I mimic your body language?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." And the guy grabbed onto a chair real tight, and I looked down, and that's what I was doing. I looked like I was on a roller coaster. And
Wow.
he said, "Can I give you permission to relax?" And I did. Like, I physically felt myself relax, but then what came after that was about 30 minutes of tears.
Oh my gosh.
And I was honored by those men for expressing what I had been feeling for a long time, which was just this buildup of just holding on to things. And the real weird part that I never would have subscribed to if I would have known this was going to happen. The guy that was leading the group said, "Can we hold you up?" And
Yeah.
I said, "Sure." And I'd already kind of given, I already kind of opened the floodgates to
Yeah.
vulnerability at that time. And they just kind of held me up, and like I was like laying down and they held me up, and I just continued to cry. And it felt as if after that evening that I had just taken off a snowsuit of pain and just sorrow and, just built up, pent up, whatever.
Yeah.
And so then for 2 years, I didn't miss one Thursday night. I mean, every Thursday I was there wanting to understand more about myself, my emotional state, what's inside me. And it was tremendous. It was like a floodgate of awareness and an understanding of myself and my ability to regulate emotion and to understand what my body's feeling at the time and not to override those things, which I had done my whole life.
Yeah.
And so that 3-year-old boy, to circle back, really tested those emotions
I'll
and
bet.
test. And what I understand now about children is that they're just a mirror for you.
Mhm.
And so it became very clear that my 3-year-old son, Easton, was mirroring my wife and I's energy.
Mm.
And what I really came to understand, and my wife did as well, is that he can feel everything that we feel. And the only way to guide him is for us to be in control of ourselves. And so we started really working on a calm home, um, a a calm and loving approach to his behavior. And so there was one circumstance that sticks out like a sore thumb to me, and he was very physical and pretty violent as a 3-year-old.
Mhm.
And one time we were in the shower, and we were getting rinsed off, and he just stomped on my foot as hard as he could. And I remember just kind of closing my eyes and looking at him and saying, "I love you, buddy." And he looked up at me and said, "I love you too, Dad." He goes, "I'm sorry that I hurt you." And it's just this like massive, just like getting hit by a truck that
Yeah.
like really I'm driving this situation. I'm driving his emotional state and I'm guiding him in a really big way. And so, it wasn't all perfect for sure, there was a lot of reactions, and I am a reactive guy, and so,
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I went to bed upset with myself for how I did react or respond to his behavior.
So many times. Yeah. I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
like, "Oh, man, I really messed that up." Like, "God, I'm such a piece of shit,"
And
and
I'm going to ruin my kid for his whole life
yeah,
from this one interaction we had because he wanted candy and I wouldn't give it to him and whatever.
yeah, and, one thing that my wife has taught me, so throughout sort of the lineage of my son, Easton, he most of his life, I was gone. So I was still in the Army when he was born, and
Right.
then, subsequently, I had a lot of jobs that required me to travel.
Right.
And so what that did was create sort of a void in our relationship, but what I tried to do was compensate for that when I got home. And
Yes.
so I thought, and I'm still learning about this, is that in my mind, love is, taking him to Target and buying a toy, or spending time with him. Every day I'd pick him up from school and say, "What do you want to do?" And I sort of created this groove in our relationship where he believes, or has believed in the past, that dad equals fun. And so my wife looked at me one night. She could tell I was exhausted. And what I tried to do, and I sort of backed myself up into a corner with this mindset, was just to try to not say no to him.
Yeah.
And so at night, when it's time to go to bed and I'm exhausted from work and I got to get up early, "Hey dad, let's wrestle or let's play." And I was just totally, completely tired at the time, and my wife said, "Why don't you just say no? You're tired." And I said, "I can't. Like,
Yeah.
I gotta make up time, like, this little
Yeah.
guy needs me, and then I'm leaving tomorrow, and I'll be gone for 2 weeks." And she said, "You are teaching him boundaries by telling him no. He needs to know that he can do that to other people." And I
Wow.
said, "Wow." I said,
So true.
"You're right." And so I've been working on that balance for, the last 5 years of what do I say yes to, what do I say no to, and then just, like, taking a step back and realizing that those moments of me having boundaries isn't me being a bad dad. It's teaching him that there are times where we say yes, and there are times where we're busy or tired and we just have to say no.
Yeah.
And so an amazing learning curve, and such a long answer to your question, but, when I sense that his behavior is going a certain way, it's caused me to have to get more resourceful and more, creative in sort of redirecting that behavior. And I think we all just wanna live our lives and have our kids be the best kids in the world, and, you know, but being able to, like, take a step back when you are busy, when you're in the middle of something that needs to be done right now, but then prioritizing his emotions and his experience. It's like cooking. My wife will cook and bake with the kids, and there's flour and dough, and, like, the kitchen looks like a hurricane went through there,
Sure it does.
but she knows that the value is in them having the hands-on experience and the connection, and I've really had to play with that and
Yeah.
experiment with that and get used to that. There was one moment where, I was sort of at my wit's end, where every day I'd come home and the house would be destroyed, and the one thing that I was annoyed with the most at the time was ketchup. It was like
And
my kids had ketchup everywhere on the kitchen table, on the paper towel roll. It was on my clothes often. And I had this mentor, and he said, "Dude, you have to figure out how to fall in love with ketchup." He goes, "It's all in the brain. It's all in the mind." And I totally believe this. And we can continue to talk about this forever.
that is such I wanna put a pin in that
Yeah.
because that is an unbelievably powerful sentiment, is you make the meaning. You decide, either unconsciously or consciously, what this ketchup thing means to you,
Yeah.
and
What's
you
more
can
important?
decide to change that meaning if you want to.
100%.
and you just need to do it.
And
There's
when you
no,
do it,
it is a decision and then it's done.
and then when you do it, you realize how petty you were being.
That's right.
And you realize, wow, I'm getting to choose this powerful relationship with my child versus this angry monster that doesn't like ketchup.
Right.
And it's so visceral and powerful in the moment to realize that you have that ability inside of you to disregard this judgment or this you know this feeling of like being in it really it's not being in control.
Yeah, your reflex doesn't have to be the way that you respond to everything.
No, and we there's so many rabbit holes we could go down in with this thread, but you getting to decide what you're comfortable with and what you're not comfortable with is it's a superpower.
Yes.
And so, you know, going back to like being a kid and being angry and then, becoming a Green Beret, when I was a kid, I didn't like discomfort and I didn't like dirt or mud or anything uncomfortable. And I used to get shamed for it.
Uh,
Um, of oh, Aaron's kind of a sissy, or he's uncomfortable in the cold water, or he doesn't like mud on him, and that was all true. But when I decided that I was going to become a Green Beret, and I went to the course, I started to develop a new relationship with those feelings and
I
that
can imagine.
discomfort. And so dirt and mud and sweat and like, clothes I've had on for 6 or 7 days became sort of amazing to me.
Huh.
And it became sort of part of the process. And even up to this day, I go on these hunting trips and, I don't shower for a week or 10 days and, I'm covered in dirt and blood, and mud, and I love it. It's part of me.
Yeah.
It's this gritty, feeling of accomplishment that I've decided for myself that that's the way it's going to be. I'm not focusing on that discomfort aspect. I'm saying, there's somewhere in the rewiring of my brain that has become so accustomed to discomfort that I enjoy it. I know that it equals growth. And I wish I could like package that up and give it to a lot of people. I
Yeah.
really, I really do.
Yeah. That's a superpower. That's exactly right. That is an absolute superpower. And really, it doesn't take a whole lot more than just deciding to do it.
It's it.
Yeah. I want to talk for a moment about Wild Ops Box.
Sure.
Your comment about the men's group that you stumbled upon, basically, um, makes me think about how we used to have institutions that that we were sort of forced to go to. Church is a great example of this. 30 years ago, you and I would go to church every Sunday, and that would kind of force us into community. And a lot of those institutions are starting to crumble down. And as a result, we have to be intentional about how we find those kinds of things. And that is kind of how I think about what you're doing with Wild Ops Box. We're losing our institutions, we're losing our thresholds. I'm really interested to talk about that. Where did that idea come from, and what's it all about?
Yeah. So there's a lot of different threads that, I could pull on here. And I think generally speaking, it's a culmination of things I have done in my professional and my, my just personal achievements. So, you know, um, after I got out of the army, the one thing I really kind of attached myself to or became really interested in is the field skills
Hmm.
of being outside and
Yeah.
learning to survive. And one of my mentors actually runs a survival camp here in Montana in the summer, and I'd always admired him and his mentorship. And the one thing that I've done since I've got out of the army is, you know, you become a Green Beret and that becomes your identity. And it's really hard to step like away from that. or to graduate into something different.
Yeah.
And I think what happens to a lot of guys, it definitely happened to me, was you take that identity and you just transmute it into something else, but really all of the things that really weren't working out still exist. And
Yeah.
so for me, when I got out of the army, it was a very difficult transition in the sense that I didn't know where to put my energy and how to maintain a certain identity. And my idea of what that looked like was having a really sexy job. I was a safety guide for National Geographic for a TV show in Alaska. I ran a veteran special operations nonprofit. I was a wilderness guide for taking veterans on experiences in Yellowstone and Glacier, Appalachian Trail, Joshua Tree, all that stuff. And I had really been focusing on the identity aspect of what is Aaron doing? What is, how is my experience and my identity flowing through me to obtain security, and supporting my family. And really, all of those careers required me to be away, to be out of the house, to be in the field.
Right.
And so, really, I had just like transferred, a deployment into a different thing, which wasn't as dangerous. And I guess you could argue that with being in Alaska. But, you know, my wife and I were sitting at this park one night, and I'd sort of came to a sort of this conclusion that I needed to figure out something more grounded for me that allowed me to stay home, but something that I could like sink my teeth into and focus on for a career.
Yeah.
And we went back and forth of, I could do this, I could do that. And my wife just looked at me and said, that all requires you to be gone. And how about you come up with something that keeps you here in the home? And I said to her, what if we created like a subscription box company that allowed us to spend time with our kids and to cultivate a lot of the lessons that I've learned over time to help support families, specifically dads. And she was like, okay, you're starting to get somewhere. She goes, this sounds interesting. She goes, what would you put in those boxes? And I said, the one thing that I enjoy more than anything is, being in the backcountry here in Montana. And I said, what I've came to understand through my career and through this line of work I've done is that men seem to not really know how to do these core skills.
Yeah.
I watched a guy in Alaska try to start a fire by lighting a whole log on fire, and I watched him fall on his face for 30 minutes doing that until I said, listen, you got to break that down into smaller tinder. You've got to get something that, will allow the oxygen to get underneath the fire. And these grown men are blown away.
Wow.
And so I thought to myself, this all comes second nature to me, or first
Right.
nature to me. And so what if we put we blended outdoor education into a survival skill. And what if we made it sort of like the Boy Scouts, but on your own? And
Hmm.
so with the busy schedules that people have, with school and sports and all the extracurricular activities, I think one reason that the Boy Scouts has kind of fallen apart is because no one has time to get the uniforms and go sell cookies and popcorn and all that good stuff.
Sure.
And so what if we gave families the opportunity to do that in their own time and to create more of a blended product that allowed for parents to connect on a deeper level with their children and teach these basic survival skills that we've sort of lost over time. And my wife's like, of all the things you've ever came up with in this moment, she goes, I am confident that this is what you should be doing. And
Wow.
so I briefed that plan to a buddy of mine, and he was like, dude, I think that's going to work. He's like, it sounds awesome. And this was back in like December of this past year. And right after that, I think it was like January 3rd, I had an old teammate of mine reach out and say, "Hey, dude, what are you doing with your time right now?" And I said, "Well, I'm a director at this resort, but I'm also building this brand, and I think it's really cool." And he goes, "Well, tell me about it." So I told him basically what I told you, and he said, "Listen, I'm in a position to support you, and I think your idea is amazing." And he goes, "Let's talk about what that looks like." And so about 2 weeks later, he presented me with a really generous plan to fund Wild Ops Box,
That's fantastic.
and so that's where I'm at right now. I just returned from Las Vegas. I went and presented Wild Ops Box to a panel of judges and to an entire audience of people, and it's really all coming together. And
It's amazing.
yeah, and I hope that I answered your question,
Yeah.
but
So when we talk about the crumbling of institutions, a lot of the reflex, I think, in a lot of ways, is to try and bolster up those old institutions. Oh, well, we need to go to church more, or whatever it is. And what that fails to do is really embrace
yeah,
what is great about the modern world, what is possible now that wasn't possible 15 years ago.
sure,
And what you've done is you're looking to solve that problem in a way that is consistent with the modern world.
yeah.
And
I
I
think it's
think
very
that
timely.
is tremendously powerful.
Thank you.
And I'm glad you're doing it. And I'm really excited to see where it goes.
Well, thank you. And, at this point in my life, I've been involved in several, startup companies,
Yeah.
nonprofits, and I've always kind of wondered, like, why have they not worked out?
Mhm.
Why am I still here sort of wondering where to go next? And I
Yeah.
think really all of those experiences for me have been scaffolding to sort of support this idea and understand what to do and what not to do. The one thing that I'm certain of is that, building a startup company with no income and no backup plan is an absolute recipe for a dumpster fire. And I've been in those dumpster fires so much.
Yep.
And what
Yeah.
I've
In one of the toughest economies we've had in a while.
Yeah. And so what I've done with Wild Ops Box is I've set these, really solid intentions of building it one day at a time.
Yep.
And so the really kind of the golden lining of all this is that I truly love the job that I have right now that supports us and pays the bills. And then, within that, simultaneously, I can say, what can I do today to bring Wild Ops Box to life? And
Uh,
then I work on it for an hour or two and I move the needle a little bit forward. And after, 7, 8 months, the needle has moved quite far.
yeah.
And I've been taking it very slowly and deliberately and creating it because it does mean everything to me. It's not just like a hobby. Like, I hope this is a legacy, that lasts through my lifetime and then through my kids' lifetimes.
Yeah.
And we did this proof of concept about a month ago, and I have some real great friends over at Black Rifle Coffee Company, and they heard my idea and they said, "Dude, we'd love to support you." And their lead content creator, his name's Ben Pennington. He's doing some great work too, but aside from Black Rifle, but he saw the value and came out, and we did this interview where we're sitting in this like old log cabin, and he's asking me questions about Wild Ops Box and sort of trying to create like a founder's video for
Yeah.
me. And my son Easton is sitting on the couch listening to me, and one of the most proud moments that I've had in quite some time is he stood up during the interview and said, "Dad, can I come up there and say a couple things?" He goes, "I've got some things to say." And
Wow.
yeah, come on up. So he just came up, sat on my lap, and started answering questions from the interviewer. And it was like absolute gold. And to be a fly on the wall or be a dad to a boy that has that much confidence is sort of an affirmation for how I've raised him. And I was just really proud of him.
That's such a victory moment for you.
Totally.
And
Yeah.
I love that story, and man, I can just imagine what that's like. Now let me so you mentioned earlier you just had a daughter
I
a
did.
week ago, and you've had 2 sons for well, you've had at least 1 son for 8 years,
Yeah.
and for me, I have 1 son and 1 daughter, they're 3 years apart, and my daughter completely changed me and the way that I think about being a parent and all of that stuff. What was that experience like for you? After 2 sons and all the wrestling and all the outdoor stuff and everything you got going on.
Yeah.
What did how did having your daughter change the way that you felt about being a father?
Yeah, definitely, a big transition and, different feelings, different emotions, and leading up to having my baby girl, all my buddies who are girl dads, which I have quite a few of them, they all say, "It's gonna change you, man. Like, it's coming." And, even before she was born, I could feel sort of this different energy and this different dynamic, even within our household. And, my buddy I told you called me and asked me to articulate some emotions that came along with having a girl. And the number one thing that I have felt is this just tremendous softening of myself and my own energy, and welcoming her little tiny fragile, feminine energy into my being has just been so much different. Like with my boys, I just throw them over my shoulder like a sack of hammers, and
Right.
you know the wrestling, the farting, it's all boy, our whole house. So we have 2 boys and we have a boy dog, and it's like my wife is just like completely singled out.
That was the way
And
my childhood was. There were 4 of us and all male pets. We had a male cat, we had a male dog. I think the fish were
yeah.
even male. My mom,
Well,
she was
I mean, there's a lot to unpack here because I grew up that way. I grew up
yeah.
with brothers, I grew up with male cousins. I went on to play rugby and, a lot of all male sports. And then, went to the only all male organization within the Army, which is the Special Operations. And so, my relationship and my exposure to females has been negligible compared to the massive amount of masculinity that I've been surrounded by.
Right.
And so, there was definitely a softening, but then simultaneously a hardening
Yeah.
to just know that like I've got to protect this little girl, and her energy and her impact on me has already started to kind of work its way into my soul. And you know, I I don't think a lot of people talk about this, but it really sort of does transform the way that you look at women too.
Yeah.
Um, I've always respected and loved my wife and, treated her like a princess, but there's almost no other feeling like having a daughter and knowing that you're going to be like the first line of defense for everything. I mean, you are going to be the man for everything. My boys are going to grow up tough and strong, and they're going to go out on their own, and my 8-year-old would probably be fine in the world right now. Um, but to know that I have this like little being that really kind of looks to me for guidance and strength and support is probably for a lifetime is such a different feeling. And so I'm feeling really blessed. I feel like the household, the dynamic has changed so much. The boys are obsessed with her. They are constantly wanting to hold her and
That's wonderful.
play with her, and they don't realize that she's not like play worthy yet. And they're like
Right.
pulling on her and you know, kind of like, trying to take her away from us. And it's like, hey, you gotta kind of treat her like a little like fragile egg at this moment. But yeah, it's definitely changed the way I feel, the way I think. And then, long term, it's like my wife and I talked about it a long time ago. We should have a girl so she sticks around and takes care of us when we're old.
Right,
Because
because these boys are gone.
these boys, yeah, who knows what their future looks like. But yeah, it's definitely a precious new dynamic that I never could have planned for or even you know,
Yeah,
theorized on.
it's a there's a big difference. There's a big difference, and it's really, really interesting, and it
Special.
only gets more that way, and more better. My wife and daughter both dressed up in the same costume
Oh,
for Halloween. And they were both dressed up as Rumi from K-pop Demon Hunters.
oh, I'm
And
unaware of that.
which is, I mean, half the girls in the neighborhood were dressed up as Rumi from K-pop Demon Hunters, a very, very popular costume
Got
group.
it.
And it was watching them, it was so adorable. My daughter, who's 3, is just an absolute little mini me for my wife,
Yeah.
and it was the cutest thing. And I just, you've got a lot more in store,
Well,
of that stuff.
yeah, and one thing that I wanna hit on is, like, I think, as guys, it's real easy for us to navigate boys in the sense that it's just like this masculine, wrestling and,
Yeah,
hunting and fishing and, just but to have the vulnerability to sit down and have a tea party or play with Barbies or allow a little girl to paint your nails or mess with your hair, it's just a whole new level of territory that, I think forces tough guys to really kinda let their guard down, and, one thing that comes up when I talk about that, I used to run this nonprofit
mm,
for special operations veterans, and, we had this one, week that we called Restore, and it was, the impetus of it, the intention of it was to every day Saturday, you get to play with your kids and sort of begin to restore this relationship. Because most of the guys that came here, had been at war for 20 years in the GWAT and, just
wow,
really were out of touch
sure,
with their children, and,
sure,
the one thing that sorta happened unintentionally was that the guys would all sort of gather on the front porch and drink coffee and tell war stories,
yeah,
and, that's just what we do. It's inherent to our past. It's
right,
kinda what happens when you put all these guys together.
sure,
And, without judgment, I sorta just, like, walked up on the porch one day and said, "Hey, you're all badass MFers, like, we know what you've done, you've all achieved way beyond what anybody has ever considered, in the military and whatever," and I said, "But those kids, they're all playing out there, and you all are sitting here on the porch telling your war stories." And I said, I want you to take the time in the next 4 or 5 days to exclusively commit yourself to your kids. And, I said, "You're all gonna have a homework assignment, and in that assignment, you're gonna stand up here in front of everybody and commit your vows to your children."
mm,
And they all were like, "Oh, okay." So they went on, they definitely got the message, and then, this guy, he was a Marine recon guys, probably 6'4", bald, covered in tattoos. Looks like he just came off the set of Sons of Anarchy. And he sat there and committed his vows to his 2 daughters.
mm,
And everybody in the room put on their sunglasses because it was so powerful
yeah,
to see both his little girls just hanging on him and listening to him like commit these future intentions to them and how he was going to be and so powerful.
yeah,
But to see a guy like that that's just completely full of aggression and anger and 20 years of war and get up and soften himself to a crowd of people in front of his 2 girls was just that was just unbelievable to me. And I think it says a lot about what we can do in terms of accountability and community, and you bring up all of those organizations and community, aspects that we're sort of losing out on or missing out on.
mhm,
And I think that that's an environment that we all really crave is to have that accountability and that ability to be vulnerable and to say what we say what we want in life that means enough, that's it's meaningful enough for people to listen and for us to take seriously and commit to with our children. It's a really special thing.
I really love that vow to your children. We stand up in front of a church and make vows, or in front of a congregation of some sort to make vows to our wife, right? And her to us. And then we just have kids.
Yeah.
And we don't make vows to them. And maybe we should. That's actually a much more permanent aspect of our lives. You can
Yeah.
get divorced from your wife. You can't get divorced from your kids.
No.
And I really like that as a threshold ritual.
And that's what it is. And a lot of what Wild Ops Box is, the outdoor skills, the survival skills, they're great.
Yeah.
And what they are is a vehicle to get to those rituals.
Mhm.
And so within each box is an activity. There's an educational piece. There is there's a tangible hands-on skill that you get to learn. But within that is a prompt.
Uh-huh.
Whether it's I have these little, like Altoid cans
Yeah.
that come with prompts that go into the land navigation box. And then the mother or the father, whoever's leading the exercise, eh, the impetus is, hey, find your way to this item. And then once they get there, they open up the can and there's a question. And that question is a meaningful prompt to connection. And so one might say, what do you really appreciate about your dad? Or, what can I do better as a dad to help you and guide you along this
Yeah.
way? And so it's something that I think that we know we need to do. But what Wild Ops Box does is grant mothers and fathers permission to go deeper with their kids,
Yeah.
to create a set of values. Like one of the boxes has a value prompt that at the end of the day, when you're done, it goes on your fridge and it outlines your values within the home and what we can hold accountable for each other. And so when we did that with our kids, we let them come up with all the values.
Yeah. That's what an amazing exercise.
Yeah. And I sat down with Sharpie and a note card and I wrote all the things that they really want to say they want to be held accountable for.
Yeah.
Is, a clean home, a happy home, uh, you know, speaking respectfully towards each other, having family time, whatever it may be. And those values are front and center in our home. And whenever those values are compromised, it's very easy for my wife and I, or even my kids, to say, wait a minute, I don't think we're doing that.
Yeah. You just point at the fridge and say,
We're
hey,
That's being violated,
yeah.
or this thing that happened does not equate to what we promised each other on the fridge.
Yeah.
And I think when you take those things and you put them into writing and you have that ritual with your family as a whole,
Yeah.
it's the mortar that holds the home together.
No question. No question. And you're not going to do it otherwise.
Mm-mm.
Unless there's a prompt, you're not going to do it otherwise, frankly.
And you can have an idea.
Yeah.
Your wife can have an idea of how you want the home to run,
Right.
but once you make it their idea,
Right.
it becomes a real thing,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. And it's not imposed.
you're empowering them to succeed,
Yeah.
which is something that we don't do enough as adults. We just want them to follow orders,
Yeah.
fall in line. And that's one thing that like doesn't happen in the special forces. We
Yeah.
don't we make the orders.
Right.
We go in before anyone else and we see what's going on the ground, and then we tell our higher ups, this is what you have these other units do to succeed. And so that's what we do in our home. We allow our kids to have the ideas
Yeah.
of the way things should look, and that accountability lies on us and them at the same time.
Yeah, and, kids, they're this kind of bundle of contradictions. They want connection, but they also want independence. And so you'll get I'll have these situations where my daughter is screaming at us and she's just like, "Get away from me, get away from me. All I want is love."
Yeah.
And that's those two parts of her that are just at war. And
Mhm.
we do a lot of the connection stuff. We, I mean, as parents, I think that sort of thing comes out here. Give me a hug and let's do family, and, certainly if it's lacking in some families, but I think a lot of families do a really good job of the connection stuff.
Sure.
But ritualizing the independence bit is a little bit harder,
It is.
because it takes so much trust and it takes so much getting out of your comfort zone. And, but this is a way to ritualize that.
Yeah. And that's what I hope that Wild Ops Box achieves, is that intrinsic value that is essentially just a delivery system
Yeah,
for parents to
yeah,
say, "Oh, wow, this is something we didn't even know we needed. And now that it's here, it's working."
yeah.
So,
It's indispensable.
yeah,
Yeah,
for sure. And it can grow over time and change and transform, and I think the elements that are needed for that is presence and patience and intention. And then when you have those 3 things, that becomes a ritual. That
yeah,
becomes a real thing that I think they can sense our ability to be present, to make eye contact. I can't tell you how many times, like, my kid says, "Look at this, look at that, look at this, look at that," and you're doing something. All they want is for you to actually look at them,
right.
and we're trying to make dinner, or we're trying
Yeah,
to
or you're browsing through your
yeah.
phone.
Well,
Yeah.
and that's something that my kids have really shown me, is like my 8-year-old will say, "Dad, you've been looking at your phone for like 30 minutes."
Wow.
And I say, "Oh boy, you're right.
Good for
Like,
him.
let me put this down." And so for a good while there before I started the company, I would just leave my phone in my truck after
Mhm,
work
mhm.
and just really focus on that intention of coming home and being present and being a part of the house,
Yeah,
instead of laying on the couch and scrolling LinkedIn or Instagram or
yeah,
whatever it was at the time.
yeah,
And that's the other intention of Wild Ops Box, is to get, because here's the thing, we say kids are on screens too much, but they watch us on screens
right.
constantly. And so I saw this meme, and it had a parent on a phone and their kid was on a phone. And then the other parent was reading a book and the kid was reading a book. And the guy on the phone looks over at the parent reading the book and says, "How do you get kids off screens?" You know, it's very obvious that they
Oh,
do
that's beautiful. I love that meme.
what we do. They just watch us. Um,
Yeah,
and going back to like my dad and his ability to prioritize fitness and wellness, like,
yeah,
we have to do that in our home in order to get our kids to see that that's what we do.
that's right.
And so we work out together, you know?
What we model for them is 100 times as powerful as what we tell them to do
Yeah, because they can hear us, but they don't give a shit
at all.
about what we say. It's what they see and feel us do
That's
that
right.
really matters.
That's right. Yeah. Let me ask you, what message or practical tip do you have that you would like to leave for fathers listening who might feel disconnected or inadequate or angry or frustrated?
Yeah, I think there's a lot to unpack there, but the number one thing that I would want to communicate to dads, if they feel that way, is to just begin to get over yourself. Get
Mm,
over yourself and this idea of who you are, and focus on the service and connection of others, whether that's your kids, that's your wife, that's your home, and just being more intentional.
yeah,
I think we all really want those things. We all want connection. We all want a functional, healthy household. But as men, I think we've been a bit stifled in the years past, in the last couple decades, of trying to understand what our place is in the home.
Yeah.
And I'll say that for me, that true masculinity comes from drawing a line in the sand and saying, this is what I want to happen,
Yeah.
and this is how we're going to get there,
Yeah.
and setting that intention and moving forward. And so if that requires you to leave your phone in your car for a couple months to get there, or to at least begin, like, that's a good start. If going to the gym every day for 30 minutes gets you there, that's a good start.
Hmm.
If you say, listen, like, there's no questions asked, like, sacred time with family is Saturday from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m., then start there. But you have to have an actionable agreement with yourself and with your family in order to make it happen, or you will just continue to go down the spiral of uselessness and disconnection that will eventually get you to a place where you'll be too late.
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah.
we talked about it earlier, 9 years from now, my oldest son will be in college, and he won't be home, and we won't have trips and vacations and summer and all these things. 9 years is nothing,
It's nothing.
you know? And so there's a reason that Wild Ops Box is set to the age group of 7 to 14, because I think that's the most formidable, useful time that you can
Mhm.
spend with your kids to help guide them into their next chapter or set them up for success.
Yeah.
And I truly believe that if we can create fully functional children, they can become contributing, you know, members of society. And that is on us. It's not on them.
I agree. Yeah. I agree. I want to try something. I want to get your advice about something.
Sure.
And I had this experience where I had my boy, I took my boy to the park, and he's got this amazing quality where you'll take him to the park, and there'll be, I don't know, 10 or 15 other boys at the park. And within about 5 minutes, he will have organized these boys, all of them, and they'll all be playing the game that he's come up with, and he'll make up a game. And be okay. This is, you're the pirates and you're the ninjas, and you're the king ninja, and you're the ruling pirate, and this is the pirate ship, and he'll be directing everybody. He's
Amazing.
just, it's like the general on the battlefield. And but he has this vision that he's trying to make happen, and he goes out there and does that. And the other day, he was at the park, and this older girl was kind of messing with him, like maybe even flirting with him. But she was frustrating his attempts to get what he was to accomplish what he was trying to accomplish in the park, uh, with his new friends. And he, um, the only way I could describe it is he menaced her. He kind of got into her face and made this face and was like, ah, and he scared her. And she cried. She went crying to her dad. And I witnessed this situation, and I went apoplectic. And I told you I don't get mad very easily, but this sort of
Sure.
thing makes me mad. And so, what would you do?
Wow. Yeah. I mean, first of all, it sounds like he has some incredible leadership skills that are kind of brewing and coming to.
I hope so. I am very excited to see what he does with us.
Yeah. Um, Honestly, what I believe happens for the most part is that if we allow our kids to sort of sort it out on their own,
Yeah,
they will.
yeah,
And I think what happens with us is that we inject ourselves, and this isn't me coming down on you. We try to intercept the issue. We try to disrupt this situation that's happening. And I think if we let it play out, for the most part, if everybody's safe,
Yep.
the full range of emotions sort of, come to fruition. And
Yep.
so I'll just share a short story that's my only sort of a relevant story that goes along with yours. Is my son was on a playground as well, and I started chatting up this dad, and him and I had a lot in common. We started talking about hunting and fishing, and um, I saw my son playing with his daughter, and they were playing great. And then at one point in time, she sort of harassed him in some way. They were at a distance, and I saw my son pick up a handful of sand and throw it in her face.
Ooh.
And there was this triggering moment in me that said, okay, time to intercept this,
Yeah.
time to, sort of try and fix this issue. And he held his hand out and put it up against my chest and said, don't worry about it. They'll figure it out on their own.
Wow.
And I looked at him, and we looked out into the playground, and the next thing you know, my son was cleaning the sand out of her eyes and hugged her and was saying sorry.
Wow.
And so I think what happens as parents is that we want to fix the issue right now, or we're so embarrassed, and it's our prowess that gets sort of challenged at the time of the conflict, when really they know that they're doing something right or wrong.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. And there's another dynamic there too, which is the other parent. You don't you don't want to get into something with them, right? I mean, the
yeah, you're
father of
trying
the
to
girl. It so
manage.
happens that the father of the girl was sitting right there and put his hand on your chest and stopped you. If he hadn't done that, then I think that you would have felt some obligation to make sure that he felt that his daughter was safe as well.
Clearly an obligation to try and solve for the issue.
Yeah.
And luckily, I mean, that man is now a good friend of mine, and he's a big part of Wild Ops Box.
Wow.
And so having that be this, really interesting interaction that I never could have, foreseen, and the wisdom and the patience that it took for him to say, no, no, like, they actually are more enlightened than we are.
Yeah.
It's his argument, and I do believe that that's true. I
I mean,
believe
there's
our
certainly more in it. They're in the forest, and we're just kind of looking in. Well, and what I ended up doing is I felt really angry inside. Um, and I felt a lot of pressure from
Sure,
the environment to be seen doing something.
sure,
And so I called my boy over to me and I said, Lake, I said, part of your job, part of your role here on the playground, you're a big, big kid. You're bigger than most of the other kids here. And you're a protector. And protectors don't menace people. Protectors don't make little girls cry to their dads. And that's a real problem. And he apologized to me. And I said, I don't think it's me that you need to be apologizing to. And then he went over to the girl and apologized to her. And yeah, I don't know what would have happened if
well, my feedback on that
yeah.
is that you did the right thing. Um, you didn't shame him, you didn't, hit him, you didn't,
I
like,
wanted
pull him
to.
off the playground.
I felt
Sure.
I felt the urge to do that. And but I'm of the opinion that shame is almost never the right way to handle something.
Of course.
Um and so I really resist that.
But, and to your credit, I think what you did was you offered him, guidance, and you empowered him as a big kid, as a young man, as a
Yeah.
protector. You gave him something to, identify with that was positive, and then he was able to hear you and experience this transformation of, "Oh, wow, I was angry, this happened, my dad came in, I got this guidance, and now maybe next time I'll think about that a bit more. And
Yeah.
so, I think both things, what I described with the hands off approach,
Right.
but then also that's how I grew up. I didn't grow up with a dad. And so I didn't have that
You
guy
had to
come
solve
to
your own
me.
problems. Yeah.
Yeah, solve my own problems. So
Yeah.
what I think kids need is mentorship and guidance from their fathers that is meaningful and impactful, and that also has um, a bit of sustenance to it. Like you gave him something empowering to
Yeah.
continue on with that I think most parents would have just pulled him off the playground, shamed him, said, "Hey, don't ever do that again," and go back to normal life. But that doesn't that's not a good band-aid either.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Well, I appreciate the feedback. I think that's I like the way you framed it. I
there's
always
no
like to
right answer.
finish
you know,
these conversations by asking everybody the same question, and I know it's going to be putting you on the spot, but give me one principle that you like to live your life by, or that you strive to live your life by, in the area of raising men.
for me, it's eat last, and to sort of hold that discipline around my boys, um, to show them and guide them towards service and service, discipline, honor, and knowing that we are the keepers, we are the strength, we are the protectors. And so when it comes to meals, when it comes to staying in line for something, is that we can stand back and wait for others before we rush to the front. We can hold this line of discipline, even though everything in our bodies and our minds say, get to the front, get the first thing, get the first ice cream cone, or whatever it is. And for me, what that looks like is, when I'm in a group of folks that I'm eating dinner with, I wait till everybody gets their plate. I hold a discipline to myself
Yeah.
that is not just involved with food, but it's what does doing the right thing look like in this moment that
Yeah.
might be uncomfortable for me, and then modeling that to my kids.
Yeah.
One thing that my dad did, and it kind of goes along with this, is he would take care of all the troubled kids in the neighborhood.
Wow.
And at the time, I was not impressed by having to have these kids at our house.
Yeah.
And my dad would invite them over to play basketball or kickball or whatever we were doing at the time. And I just looked at him like, Dad, these kids are troublemakers.
Hmm.
I don't like them. They're not my
Yeah.
friends. And he'd say, well, listen, you're gonna deal with this because they don't have anybody at home. They don't have anybody to guide them. The one kid in particular lived with his grandma, and my dad took a huge liking to this kid, and he was such a troublemaker, and he was such a pain in the butt. But he ate dinner with us once or twice a week. My dad made a point to connect with him and show him how to shoot a basketball. And we even took kids on like family little outings and vacations with us that we weren't necessarily excited about. Um, but
Yeah.
now at 41 years old, I see the value in that, because I think as men, it's our jobs to guide not only our kids, but the community, and set that example for other men and for our kids, that it's we're all in it together. And if we don't stick our hand out and share what we have,
Mhm.
we'll just leave people behind, you know?
Yeah. And it seems like it's getting harder and harder to do that
Yes.
as our world becomes more digital, as the institutions crumble, and it's just easier just to kind of stay in your own house and
Yeah,
watch YouTube. And it's becoming more and more important to actually make that stuff happen, isn't it?
it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So keeping that alive is definitely of interest to me.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for being so generous with your time. Aaron Blaine is the CEO of Wild Ops Box. If you want to learn more about his work and about the company, please check out the links in the show notes. Aaron, thank you so much for showing us what it means to turn pain into purpose and how to raise men who lead with strength and purpose.
Man, thanks for having me. This has been fun. I appreciate you, Sean. You're doing a great thing.
Thanks, my friend. Raising Men is produced by Fiel Hernandez. This episode was edited by Ralph Tolentino.